Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, here on this Hot Take Friday special time here on the program. And the reason I said, hey, let's just go ahead and do a special live show today earlier than 2 o'clock is because basketball, that's right, basketball will be on today, and I will be watching the NCAA tournament, and I assume many of you will be watching the NCAA tournament. And so while on one hand, I know that this is different than the 2 o'clock audience, I realize, and I say this with all due respect, I feel like most people are going to be watching basketball today anyways. And I today have to start the program. Yesterday, I thought was a wonderful day of basketball. I truly enjoyed watching the NCAA tournament yesterday. And I want to start on this because it hit me yesterday. And this may sound a little selfish. This may sound a little arrogant. This may sound, I don't know the exact word to use here. I certainly have been called selfish and arrogant before. But I watched the basketball tournament all day yesterday. Hopefully, just like many of you. And I was watching it. I was so into the NCAA tournament that around like 4:30 Central Time yesterday, when the action kind of died down after the Vanderbilt game, congratulations to Vanderbilt. After the Duke game, they survived against Siena, where I think there was one game, it was Michigan State, it was at halftime, and I'm sitting there like, where's the basketball? Put the basketball on. And then the night game started, and we had North Carolina, VCU, and then I watched Michigan sweat it out against Howard and whatever. And it hit me yesterday when I watched High Point beat Wisconsin in unbelievable fashion, when I saw Siena lead Duke, when I saw McNeese get out to an early start on Vanderbilt. It hit me that when it comes to my opinions, I think I remind myself of Judge Judy. And you're going to say, wait a minute, where the fuck is he going with this? Judge Judy? You know, Judge Judith Scheinlin, where the cases are real, the people are real, the rulings are final. And the reason I think I'm Judge Jared, like Judge Judy, is because when it comes to college sports, and again, for most of us with college sports, it's college football, it's college basketball, and specifically the NCAA basketball tournament. 90% of America does not give a rat's ass about college basketball until yesterday. And at the start of the tournament, everybody's going to watch the NCAA tournament. And then after the Final Four, we'll all get back to forgetting about college basketball unless we're Joe Retro. But when it comes to watching the games yesterday and talking about college sports, it's really college football and the NCAA basketball tournament. And I have heard nothing except crying and belly aching from coaches, administrators, and commissioners for the last 5 years, since the Supreme Court demanded that the NCAA end their archaic practice of stealing labor from the players, the guys that play the game. And so after 5+ years of belly aching, it's finally made its way to the very top, where a couple of weeks ago, the President of the United States hosted a roundtable which featured Nick Saban and Urban Meyer and conference commissioners and athletic directors and people in the world of sports. Now, it didn't include any representation for the athletes, but it did feature this humongous cast and crew of a who's who in college sports, or a who's who in sports. And voices like Nick Saban and Urban Meyer are sitting there at the White House begging the president, please do something to save college sports, because college sports has been ruined, and the games you love, talking about you, the fans, the games you love will never be the same again. What about little brother? We've heard the crying, the mid-majors, the Cinderellas, the have-nots. Think about the little guy. Yes, Nick Saban of Alabama, Urban Meyer of Ohio State. They were the guys who were standing up for the little guy. And I knew the entire time it was all bullshit. It is people, and these are people you trust. These are people that you have respect for, that were great coaches. Nick Saban's a great coach. Urban Meyer's a great coach. These are people who are lying to you about the future of sports, college football, the NCAA basketball tournament, the sports that you love. They are lying because the playing field has been leveled. Nick Saban, in May of 2022, warned that college football could lose parity with these new rules. I pulled up the article today, May 16th, 2022. Nick Saban warns college football could lose, quote, parity. And I remember in 2022 when Nick Saban said it, and I laughed my ass off then. And I thought to myself, really? Like, that's what we're worried about right now? Really? Because in Nick Saban's day, how many teams had a legit shot at winning a national championship? 4 teams? 5 teams? Even Nick Saban had to know, as he was being incredibly dishonest in 2022, that college football didn't have parity. From 2009 to 2020, Alabama, Auburn once, Florida State once, Ohio State, Clemson, and LSU once won national titles. 12 championships, 6 champions, and again, Auburn, Florida State, and LSU over that time period won once. Think about that. Last year, Indiana in football won the national title. Vanderbilt was knocking on the door of the college football playoff. Again, it was all bullshit. That's what it was, this idea that the little guy, we're standing up for the little guy. We're standing up for the sanctity of college sports. It's not true. In college basketball, the fear was that the mid-majors can't compete and are now like a minor league system for the halves of college basketball. So if you're a Belmont and you build up your team, every good player you have is going to go into the portal and then go to a good school. I saw Gentry Estes, who I really like. I just think Gentry has some bad opinions sometimes. I think Gentry has more good opinions than he has bad opinions. But sometimes I think Gentry has some really doozies. And one of his was when Casey Alexander took the Kansas State job. Gentry Estes put out on Twitter that this is a sign of the times that Mr. Belmont, Casey Alexander, would leave Belmont to take the Kansas State job. To which I said to him, do you think 20 years ago, Casey Alexander wasn't taking the Kansas State job? Like, at no point in time was Casey Alexander not going to take the Kansas State job, because Kansas State pays more money than Belmont. And not, well, I can make $800,000 at Belmont and I can make $900,000 at Kansas State. No, it's I can make $600,000 at Belmont and I can make $4 million at Kansas State. And there's nowhere where if they're going to pay you $4 million, you'll turn that down to make a seventh of that. And it's always been that way as far as the haves and the have-nots of college sports. But again, every coach, every administrator, every commissioner has come out now and told you that NIL and the transfer portal are ruining college football. President Trump, please save us, because college sports, the bedrock, is being ruined by player empowerment, which, by the way, was given to the players by a Republican Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in favor of the players. So when I hear about all this belly aching, and I hear about this doomsday, the boogeyman, NIL, transfer portal, I think to myself, really? Could have fooled me yesterday when Siena was up 43-32 on Duke. Could have fooled me yesterday when High Point of the mighty Big South Conference won 83-82 against Wisconsin, who gets that massive Big Ten check every year. And then I watched North Carolina completely crap their pants to VCU. And I have to ask everybody out there, do you think Dean Smith would have ever lost to VCU in the NCAA tournament? Come on now. Georgia, they have pretty good NIL money, right? I mean, last time I checked, Georgia's able to field a fully funded football team every season that competes for a national title. Georgia's got deep-pocketed boosters. They play in the mighty SEC. Then why did they lose last night to St. Louis by 25 points? Somebody explain this to me. Because the truth is, all of the old hats are either A, lying, or B, are too stupid to see the truth. And I don't think Nick Saban's stupid. So I think they are either lying because in their day, in college football, in college basketball, they took advantage of systems that were inherently unfair and unfair in their favor. Or some of the people that, again, still hate the state of college athletics today are too stupid because they let their fondness for the way things were cloud their brains for the way things should be. And yet a lot of people believe them. One of my best friends was a college athlete. He played Major League Baseball. The other day, he and I got into this huge argument about what's the future of college sports. And he's like, they've got to do something. They have to do something, Jared. It can't be the same. And I said to him, you played the game. You don't think the players should be entitled? And I'm not saying that college sports is perfect, because college sports aren't perfect. Every system has issues. But to act like what we care about, we the fans, has gone down the toilet, the way they talk about it is just dishonest. TV ratings are high. Interest is high. People care. I know you care. I know you watched yesterday. I watched yesterday. We all watched yesterday. That's why as soon as NIL became the norm, guess who got out? All the coaches that dominated under the previous system. Roy Williams got out. Jay Wright got out. Mike Krzyzewski got out. Nick Saban got out. These guys are like, I can't do this. I can't do this where every year players can transfer. And I can't do this where I've got to compete financially with other schools instead of just saying, I'm Duke. I'm Coach K. Come play for me. Instead of that, I now have to say, hey, I know BYU's offering you $6 million. Come play for us for $7 million. And they didn't like that. And I get it. Most people don't like change. I don't like change. But again, I understand what happened. For years and years and years, the college players were taken advantage of. It was free labor. And for years and years and years, because of school pride or the way you were raised, people donated, people contributed, people bought tickets, people turned on the TV to watch their favorite college football and college basketball programs and their favorite college basketball tournament. And for years and years and years, we just assumed that's the way it should be. But that doesn't make it right. These players were playing for free. Well, they were getting a college education. Okay. But if they had said to the university, you know what, fuck the education, just go ahead and give me the 48 grand. Although now my kid's 1 year old, so I haven't had to feel the brunt of this. But I now hear that college educations are like 80 grand a year. So just go ahead and give me the 80 grand a year, and I'll take that, and don't worry about school. They would have said, no. There was no representation for athletes for 150 years. Well, that changed. And again, the old hats just don't want to admit it. I think it's been great. And I said this when I was on the radio in Louisville. And in the summertime in Louisville, it can be kind of dead. You know, college sports town, they stop playing baseball in June. There's nothing in July until conference media days. And conference media days are all kind of horse shit anyways. So there's nothing there. And you just wait until the start of the football season. And I was on the radio when Johnny Manziel got suspended at A&M. And if you remember, Todd Gurley got caught up in this too. They were signing autographs for money. Manziel got caught. Somehow Gurley got brought into that. And as Gurley got brought into it and Manziel got into it, it was a big topic in Louisville. And it was, should you pay the players or not? And we had loaded phone lines every time. And people were like, well, they get an education. And other people were like, they're playing in front of 70,000 and 100,000 people, and they don't get any real money for it. And here's what I said at the time. I don't know how to do this because I'm not smart enough. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to make it so that we can pay the players and we can solidify things as far as Title IX is concerned, because the way Title IX works, if you receive the public funding, you have to pay the women just as much as you pay the men. So I don't know how we do that. And I'm not a lawyer, and but I know this. In the city of Louisville, Kentucky, there's about 1 million Louisville fans and 1 million Kentucky fans. And when they turn the ball game on, they don't feel any differently about their Kentucky Wildcats than a Dallas Cowboy fan feels about the Dallas Cowboys. Yes, the players are younger, and yes, at the time they weren't getting paid, but they didn't feel any different about it. And so all I said was, whatever we do not change the way I enjoy college football on Saturdays, and do not change the way I enjoy that basketball tournament. And yesterday, I vehemently enjoyed the basketball tournament. Now, my team almost choked away a 20-point lead, too, like North Carolina. Now, luckily, we didn't. Louisville advanced. But, I mean, I was sweating it. But I wasn't thinking about whether or not these guys were going to class. I actually did think about that during the Vandy game. And I did wonder, like, do the Vandy players go to class now? But, again, that was just on my mind. I don't. And yet, as these old hats get up there and whine and complain about the state of college sports and scare you about the boogeyman of player empowerment, transfer portal allows movement. You don't like the coach? You don't feel like he's treating you well? You can go somewhere else. NIL now puts a value on the player. The coach has to pay the player. The organization has to pay the player. And players are always more important than coaches. That's how you can get to the national title game in football with a numbnuts like Mario Cristobal as the head coach, because you just go out and buy the best players. And this takes me back to Judge Judy and the realization to me that while a lot of people will say that it's a shtick, or a lot of people will say it's some sort of vitriol, or some people will say it's an act, I truly believe what I say. And I think the reason I get so hard on coaches and general managers and athletic directors and people that I feel like are bullshitting you people, is because I'm like Judge Judy. Don't bring that ball didn't bounce our way bullshit into my courtroom, Rand Carthon. Do you see stupid written across my forehead? When you get up there, Nick Saban, in 2022, and you tell me the NIL and the transfer portal are going to ruin parity in college football, when for the last decade it's been you, Clemson, Ohio State, and then maybe Georgia, maybe LSU, I think parity, there's no parity now. Do you see stupid written across my forehead? And since Saban's comments, Indiana and Vandy have gotten good at football. And yet, a lot of people believe them. A lot of people believe that the state of college football and the state of the NCAA men's basketball tournament and the futures of those sports are in jeopardy because of the boogeyman that the Nick Sabans and the Coach K's and the Urban Meyers have all been warning everybody about. Could have fooled me yesterday when I watched High Point beat Wisconsin. The truth is, or I should say, the reality of the situation is, college sports are incredibly unique, and they always have been. College sports, when you are really looking at it, they are the minor league of this country. The players play in college, and then they go on to the pros. Fernando Mendoza played in the minor leagues last year, dominated in the minor leagues. Now he's going to go to the pros. But because of the way things were, and I don't totally understand this, but I'm sure it goes all the way back to the ye olde days of the leather helmets. People have serious attachments to these minor league teams. Caroline Fenton, who I love to death, Caroline Fenton cares more about the minor leagues, college football, than she does about the major leagues, the NFL. And so because of these attachments to our schools, because of these attachments to the school that our grandfather went to or our great-grandfather went to, we as a society care about these schools and these teams, and it makes this minor league very popular in ways that, say, the Milwaukee Admirals or the Nashville Sounds are not. But the game isn't worse because of it. As a fan, the game is the same. Unless you're a fan of Alabama or North Carolina, where they have not replaced that great Nick Saban or the great Roy Williams. I'd argue it's better in football because resources are limited. I talk about this all the time. When people will say to me, well, if there's no salary cap, then why can't every team in the NFL just buy every player they want? They can. The cap is fake. The money is real. And the money is finite. No NFL owner has $1 trillion. And if they did, then they could buy whatever they want and kick the can down the road and do whatever. And the money for college sports is finite too. So a program like Alabama, or even a program like Texas A&M or Texas, that has an unbelievable amount of boosters. These Big Ten schools, Michigan and Ohio State, they've got the Ellisons behind them at Michigan. They can go buy great players. And yet, they don't have an infinite amount of money to spend. So that means that schools like Vanderbilt can go buy players. And they can go buy players that may sit on the bench at Alabama. But instead, those guys want to play. So they go into the transfer portal and they play. And I think that's leveled the playing field. If I had $10 million to spend and I could spend it on a great coach with no players, or I could spend it on a bunch of great players with a numbnuts for a coach, that's what I would do. Again, that's how you get to the championship game with Mario Cristobal. Now, are there problems with college athletics? Sure. And there's going to be problems when the power shifts 100% from the school and the coaches to 100% the players overnight. And it shouldn't be that way. That's why leagues collectively bargain. Even the NFL has to give in a little bit to the players. They don't want to, but they do. And I do worry when it comes to the issues with college sports. And you'll hear people again when it comes to the idea of the boogeyman about the NIL and the transfer portal. They're ruining these sports. I do agree with the idea that this is going to hurt the non-revenue sports. The sports that you don't care about, the sports that I don't care about, it is going to hurt swimming and diving and track and field and women's soccer and lacrosse and volleyball and all of that. I agree. And at some point, it's like, well, we need a new defensive tackle, so let's just cut the swimming and diving program, and I don't love that. But what Judge Judy does when you come into her courtroom is she cuts through the bullshit. And when it comes to everybody scaring the public about the future of college sports because of NIL and the transfer portal, I'm here to cut through that bullshit. College sports are fine. Football's great. People are watching. People are attending games. Tickets for the national championship game were like $4,000 a piece. Basketball's great. You can't tell me you didn't enjoy watching the tournament yesterday. Does the infrastructure of college sports need tweaking? Absolutely. But everything needs tweaking. Our healthcare system needs tweaking. Our laws need tweaking. Everything needs some form of tweaking. The World Baseball Classic was amazing. And I would argue it needs tweaking. But after an incredible first day of the NCAA tournament, the hallmark day for college sports, spare me the crap about, oh my God, college sports are broken. What are we going to do? I remember when the one and done, which is not a college basketball rule, it is an NBA rule. I remember when the one and done was going to ruin college basketball. I remember it. And so do you people. Remember when it was like, well, these guys, they don't stay in the same place. They don't this, they don't that. I enjoyed Kentucky basketball when Calipari kept recruiting all those one and dones. And I was rooting against them. And a lot of people were rooting for them. Again, it's all about the story. And in college sports and college basketball, the story creates itself. I didn't give a shit about High Point until yesterday. Now I'm in. Josh Schertz, the head coach at St. Louis. He's a hot name now on the coaching circuit. The guy just beat Georgia by 25 points. Most people didn't even know who that was. I was talking to Lindsay about this today. You know, we're in a March Madness pool, and apparently in the March Madness pool we're in, all of the women, excuse me. Sorry about that. All of the women in this March Madness pool that we're in are just crushing the guys, which I actually think is pretty incredible. I actually haven't looked at it, but Lindsay was telling me about this. The country singer Madeline Merlot, by the way, is leading our March Madness pool, and apparently she told Lindsay she did her entire bracket based on vibes. I say this because I told Lindsay, I go, 90% of America does not give a rat's ass about college basketball for the first 5 months of the season. November, December, January, February, early March, it's like, pfft. Now the basketball bennies, the Joe Rexroads of the world, they're sitting there looking at Joe Lunardi's bracket, or they don't even like Lunardi. They've got a better bracketologist. They're looking at the net and the RPI and on, you know, at the Thanksgiving table. They got their phones out. Oh my God, what are they going to do? And I say this because when it comes to the tournament, once we start playing the games, the other 90% that didn't care about college basketball, they're all in. Now, if you have a team, you'll watch your team and you'll root for your team, and most people do have a team. But college basketball, by no means, moves the needle. And so when I was watching the tournament yesterday, I was having a great time watching the tournament today. And that's, again, the reason why we're going early today is because I want to watch the tournament, and I'm going to watch the tournament. And we may have a show tonight based upon the end of the UT game, may have a show tomorrow night on the Vanderbilt game. I don't know. But just spare me the horse shit about the death of college sports and about how evil paying the players is and how player movement is ruining the sport. It's not. We all enjoyed the tournament yesterday. We're all going to watch today. That's how it works. I do want to tell you about our presenting sponsor. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And then I will get to kind of my main takeaways from the first day of the tournament and some thoughts heading into day number 2. And then I've got a hockey thought and I've got an NFL thought here on the program. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys. Hiller has been taking care of my home for years. They can do the exact same for you. They've been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated. With 100% satisfaction, if happy, you'll be, the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller will make it right. Learn more by visiting happyhiller.com with professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value. They believe that when they care about others, everybody wins. And they'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller called the Happy Face Truck today, and obviously Hiller must be very, very excited because the Predators won last night. Huge win for them. Vanderbilt won yesterday. Huge win for them. Tennessee plays tonight. Okay. I want to hit on the first and second rounds, really the games yesterday. Number one, and I want to start with Vanderbilt because it's local. I thought Vanderbilt was going to lose yesterday. I thought Vanderbilt was going to beat McNeese. Again, I don't believe in talking about your bracket, but that is the society we live in where people fill out their brackets and then say, oh, I had them going. I always know in my head that what you do in the conference tournament doesn't mean anything in the NCAA tournament. But I felt like this Vanderbilt team was pretty good. And McNeese got off to a hot start yesterday, and I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, Vanderbilt did not show up, and it's going to bite them in the ass. And it felt like early in the game, Vanderbilt was missing shots. They were turning the ball over. McNeese getting wide open 3 looks, hitting the wide open 3s. I thought, oh, shit, here we go. And it took me back to the 2008 Vanderbilt team. If you remember, that Vanderbilt team knocked off number 1 UT in Memorial Gym. They had Shane Foster that year, was on fire, SEC Player of the Year, and they got into the first round of the NCAA tournament. I think they were a 4 seed, and they played Siena, and Siena absolutely bombed them out of the building, and they were one and done. A year after getting to the Sweet 16 in a game where they should have beat Georgetown. I kind of gave up on Vandy a little bit, where I thought, oh, God, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really, really bad for Vanderbilt. And yet, I look back at what I keep talking about, this new Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt did not let in. Vanderbilt in the second half, for the most part, really the end of the first half, started to take over, and then in the second half came out and dominated. And it's just, I keep telling people this, it's a new Vanderbilt. It is a new Vanderbilt. The days of, oh, well, here comes Vanderbilt, they're going to find a way to screw it up. It feels like those days are over. I thought Vanderbilt at the beginning of the game yesterday was going to find a way to screw it up. Instead, they found a way to win a game somewhat comfortably, in which they by no means played their best basketball. It's a lot like football. Vanderbilt had games this year where I just went into the game thinking they're going to lose because LSU is LSU and Vanderbilt is Vanderbilt. And then Vanderbilt went out there and beat them. I couldn't believe it. The second thing is, I am worried about Vanderbilt and Nebraska tomorrow night because Nebraska absolutely dominated Troy. But by all accounts, it sounds like the building in Oklahoma City, Nebraska, with their first NCAA tournament win. I knew Nebraska's basketball program was shitty. I didn't know that it was that shitty, that they've been that bad for so long. But Nebraska apparently is going to have 90% of the building in Oklahoma City tomorrow. So I think that's going to be tough for Vanderbilt. But I was impressed by the fact that that cold start did not ruin them. I thought A.K. Okereke, who I was very disappointed by in the SEC championship game, I thought he played great yesterday. really getting them back into the game. A little disappointed by Duke Miles because I thought Duke Miles was that dude yesterday. Wasn't really that guy. But again, it's a new Vanderbilt. They didn't play their best. They found a way to win. Number 2, North Carolina needs to fire Hubert Davis. I watched the North Carolina game, and it felt like one of those NCAA tournament games where it's a 6 versus an 11, and going into it, some people think that the 11 might be the trendy pick because we know that March is about the upsets, and North Carolina had a 15-point lead, what felt like pretty much the entire game. In fact, I turned it off. I kind of hate that 5 o'clock range, 6 o'clock range, where the second sessions are starting. So all the games are in the first half, and there's not really any game that's going down to the wire, which is what March Madness is all about. And so yesterday I had the multi-screens up, and I was watching Michigan and Howard because Michigan had to sweat it out there at halftime. And I thought, wow, maybe this will be a game. But I had totally put North Carolina VCU on the back burner because I figured that North Carolina was going to roll up on VCU, and that was the end of it because they had a 15-point lead pretty much the whole game. And then all of a sudden, I start to look at the top of the screen, and I see that VCU's making a comeback. So I flip it onto North Carolina VCU, and I watched the North Carolina choke chop. They could not get the ball in bounds. They couldn't make a free throw. They couldn't. And I'm sitting there, and I am not a basketball Benny. I don't claim to be. But I'm sitting there watching this game. And I tweeted this out last night. And I said, if North Carolina loses this game after being up by 19 points, again, this is North Carolina we're talking about here. If North Carolina loses to VCU after being up by 19 points, Hubert Davis needs to be fired. And when they lost, I said, Hubert Davis has to go. This is North Carolina. And I know Hubert Davis had a miraculous run in 2022 to the national championship game, and they probably should have won that national championship game, and they didn't. And I know as part of that miraculous run, they beat Duke in Coach K's last game at Cameron Indoor. They beat Duke in Coach K's last game in the Final Four. And that means something. When you beat Duke, that matters. And I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't. But at the same time, this is North Carolina. When we talk about the true blue bloods of college basketball, I mean the creme de la creme, the best of the best. We're talking about Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, and Carolina. Everybody else, and that includes my school, is a tier below that. The Villanovas, the Michigans, the Michigan States, the Louisvilles, they're a tier below. Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, and Carolina. UCLA used to be up there, but UCLA no longer is up there. UCLA is a tier 2 school. And you're just going to let Hubert Davis lose 19-point leads in the NCAA tournament and get knocked out in the first round? And you're going to be okay with being a 6 seed? And the reason North Carolina is okay with being a 6 seed and with losing in the first round of the tournament is because Hubert Davis played for Dean Smith and worked under Roy Williams. And it's a North Carolina thing. It's a Bill Guthrie thing. It's a, well, that's no excuse. Mark Pope at Kentucky won a national championship there. And I think if they lose today against Santa Clara, he should be fired too. This is about standards. At North Carolina, is your standard that we are going to be the Carolina that people think about with Dean Smith and Michael Jordan and Tyler Hansborough and Jerry Stackhouse and all the great Carolina players, Rashad McCants and Sean May and Raymond Felton that won a national title and Vince Carter? Are we going to be that North Carolina, or are we going to be a school that's cool with being a 6 seed and losing to VCU after being up by 19 points? And so I watched that. I tweeted out, I said, if I was Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director at North Carolina, I would be going down to the bench in the timeout between regulation and the start of overtime. And I would tell Hubert Davis, you've got 5 minutes to keep your job or else you're out of here. And that takes me to my next thing. The guy that should be the next coach at North Carolina that should be hired on Monday. They play on Saturday against Michigan. They are going to be underdogs. That is Josh Schertz, the head coach at St. Louis. That should be the next North Carolina coach. Josh Schertz, if you are a top program and you have the resources to be a top program, Josh Schertz is the mid-major coach who is ready to take over a top program. If you have your chips and you are ready to put them into the middle of the table and you are ready to go all in, go get Josh Schertz. And I will tell you, a couple of years ago, when Josh Schertz was at Indiana State, that was a name that a lot of people in the basketball world kept saying to me should be the next Louisville coach. Now, Pat Kelsey's done a very good job, and Pat Kelsey won yesterday, and Louisville's happy with Pat Kelsey. But Josh Schertz was a guy. I had a college basketball coach who competed against Josh Schertz, who told me Josh Schertz is a slam dunk if he takes the Louisville job. If he gets the Louisville job, if he takes the Louisville job, and he would have gotten the Louisville job. Dusty May was Louisville's top choice. They thought they had him. Michigan came in at the last moment and made an offer that Louisville wasn't going to match. Dusty May went to Michigan. They're now the number, 2 team in the country? Josh Schertz at Indiana State, I think, was the second choice. The problem was when Josh Schertz thought that Dusty May was going to get the Louisville job, Josh Schertz signed with St. Louis, and there was like a $4 million buyout, and Josh Schertz hadn't accomplished enough at Indiana State to be worth Louisville paying a $4 million buyout in order to get him. But Josh Schertz is a great coach. And I know there have been some rumblings about Syracuse and Josh Schertz. Don't take the Syracuse job. Syracuse is not an elite program anymore. They don't have the ability to be an elite program anymore, I don't think. North Carolina does. And I have been told by multiple people that Josh Schertz is a great coach. And again, this goes back to when he was at Indiana State. He goes to St. Louis. They dominate. They get into the NCAA tournament as a 9 seed. They beat the daylights out of Georgia. They'll play Michigan tomorrow. I've seen enough. He's ready. So I'm saying to North Carolina or any one of these other schools that thinks they are an elite program and they're not getting elite results with their coach, if Kentucky loses today to Santa Clara, make the move. Get rid of Mark Pope. Get Josh Schertz. And finally, about yesterday's games, I have to say this. I am a Louisville fan. I'm a Louisville alum. The athletic director is one of my best friends. I was so happy for him yesterday when he got his first win in the NCAA tournament as an athletic director. He's been the athletic director for like 4 years. And I think about all the things that program has been through. From the prostitutes in the dorm room to the $100,000 payment to a player who didn't even end up in the NBA, which, by the way, $100,000 nowadays is just a drop in the bucket, to the scandals, Petrino again, the hiring of Kenny Payne, the worst basketball coach to ever coach a game, to now winning their first NCAA tournament game in 9 years. This is a proud program. In that city, they care about Louisville basketball more than the city of Nashville cares about the Titans. I'm just telling you how it is. And I want to congratulate my school on finally winning an NCAA tournament game. And it's embarrassing for me to say that because, again, we are a proud basketball program, but you know what? I'll take it. Those are my thoughts on yesterday. Today's games, number one, I think I've said this 7 times, but I'll say it again. If Mark Pope loses today to Santa Clara, he should be fired. I mean, again, Kentucky basketball, either you have standards or you don't have standards. And by the way, apparently somebody came out and said when it came to Kentucky, they said Kentucky offered him $9 million in NIL money. Pope was asked about it directly and was like, well, I think the media needs to investigate the story. They are. They're asking you. So you need to tell them. I don't understand it. I don't. I think Mark Pope is in over his head. I think when Kentucky moved on from Cal, and I am not at the point yet, even though Arkansas beat the crap out of Hawaii yesterday, and I'm not in my bracket, but in my bracket, I do have Arkansas going to the Final Four. I am not a believer that when it comes to Kentucky basketball, I am not a believer that they should regret what happened with Calipari in the end. It was time. And it's fine to admit it, even if the guy you hired isn't better than Calipari. It's like when Vanderbilt finally got rid of Kevin Stallings and Bryce Drew wasn't as good. And people were like, well, do you regret wanting to get rid of Kevin Stallings now? No, because Kevin Stallings was a shit coach. And Jerry Stackhouse was a shit coach. And it doesn't matter that Mark Byington's better to justify getting rid of Jerry Stackhouse. It's just reality that they needed to get rid of him. If Kentucky, who's up now 2-0 on Santa Clara, if they lose, Pope's got to go. And Kentucky fans were beside themselves when they hired that man and then 5 minutes later changed their mind and said he was the truth. You need to go prove it. This is Kentucky. Just because you went there doesn't mean you're a good coach. Number 2, tonight, Tennessee plays Miami of Ohio. Well, I should say this afternoon, 3:25 Central Time. Miami of Ohio is an 11 seed, but they're 32-1. I'm a little torn here. Tennessee's been very inconsistent this entire season, but when it comes to Miami of Ohio, I think I drank the Kool-Aid that they weren't very good. Their schedule wasn't very good, and they were going to get beat by whomever they played in the first 4. Hoops Peterson came on my SiriusXM show last week, and he told me, he said, every single team that Miami of Ohio could get matched up against in the first 4, they will be the underdog. There are teams that will not make the tournament, and he used Stanford as an example. That was not a first 4 out, but a next 4 out for Joe Lunardi. He used the example of Stanford, and he said when it came to Stanford that they would be a favorite against Miami of Ohio. So I just assumed Miami of Ohio, who was winning overtime games against Scarbini State and didn't play anybody, was going to play a real school SMU in the first 4 and get beat. And then they didn't. They won that game comfortably. I don't know what to expect tonight from Tennessee. Tennessee's a big favorite. I think if I had to bet it, I think I would probably take Tennessee, though Tennessee, it feels like, plays every game close, so I may have to take the points. But when it comes to UT tonight, I just don't know how good Miami of Ohio is or isn't. And that's what's happening now, where college basketball, these big schools don't want to play the medium-sized mid-majors that they're afraid are going to beat them. So then they get into the tournament, and we have no idea how good High Point is or isn't. And that's where I sit on Miami of Ohio tonight. I don't know how good they are or how good they aren't. And my final thought is, what I love about this country is how most people outside of their own schools do not really care about college basketball, because most of the college basketball season happens during the football season. And so as the football season is going on, we're paying attention to that. And again, if you have a school, you'll pay attention, especially when conference season ramps up. But most people are not college basketball fans. And yet, this time tomorrow, 90% of this country will think they're experts on this tournament. And that I find hysterical, and I absolutely love. Couple other thoughts to hit on. Number 1, the Predators last night. So they pay UC Saros all this money, and they play this huge, big game against Seattle. as they are desperately trying to claim the last playoff spot. And going into the night, the Predators were I think they had a 17% chance of making the playoffs. They won 3-1 in regulation with Justus Onanen, and now they have a 32% chance, according to Money Puck, of making the playoffs. That is a 1-in-3 shot. That is not nothing. And they've got a lot of games upcoming against teams that are in kind of their same tax bracket as far as that last Western Conference playoff spot. Vegas tomorrow, Chicago, who stinks, on Sunday. I mean, they got a shot to make the playoffs. Now, I don't think that if they make the playoffs, they'll do anything in the playoffs, but they've got a shot. And I know it's going to sound bad to look at the Predators and to say, well, if they make the playoffs, and I'm not one of these anything can happen if they make the playoffs kind of guy. I know it can happen, but I also know it's not likely to happen. The Predators right now are 1 point behind LA for the last playoff spot. If they claim that, they'll play Colorado in the first round of the playoffs. If they play Colorado in the first round of the playoffs, they'll probably lose. But I'm okay with that. I'm not mortgaging my hopes or my future or anything on the idea that the Predators could show Colorado who's boss. I'm pretty aligned to the idea, or pretty resigned to the idea, that if they make the playoffs, they'll probably lose. But I'm okay with it. Again, everything's going to change at the end of the year because they're going to hire a new general manager, and it sounds like they're going to hire a general manager who does not have ties to the Predators organization. So a fresh set of eyeballs is going to come in, look at this organization, and say, okay, here's what we need to do, which makes me think that there will be a ripping of the Band-Aid that a lot of times the David Poyles and the Barry Trotzes have not wanted to do. And that's fine. Where I sit is that doesn't mean we have to be miserable about everything else all the time the rest of the way. And so that kind of excites me. So I'm excited for the Predators this weekend. It won't supersede my interest in the NCAA basketball tournament, but, I mean, they really do have a shot at making the playoffs. And finally, am I the only person that saw this Cleveland Browns thing? Apparently, the Cleveland Browns are trying to change a rule that instead of trading draft picks for 3 years out, they want to trade draft picks for 5 years out. So as of right now, the Tennessee Titans, if the rules were to be changed, could trade their 2031 first-round pick. Can I ask why? Like, I need the Cleveland Browns to explain this to me. And if anybody has to explain it to me, it's Cleveland. Because if there's anybody over the years that has fucked up trading away draft picks more than Cleveland, I don't know who it is. Why are they sitting there saying, you know what? We have got to change this from 3 years to 5 years. What happened? Like, what is so important that you guys say, you know what, this is a big deal? And if the Cleveland Browns, I'm not saying it shouldn't be 5 years. I mean, my gut would be no. Let's keep it the way it is. I don't think it's broken, so why try to fix it? But if the Cleveland Browns were to come to me with a legitimate argument to say, okay, this is why I think we should change this, then maybe I'd consider it. But what it looks like is the degenerate gambler who is trying to take away whatever regulations are in place so he can mortgage his house in order to go chase another same-game parlay. Nobody has screwed up trading future draft picks more than the Cleveland Browns. And now the Cleveland Browns want to be able to trade more future draft picks? Explain it to me. Because it just sounds like the Cleveland Browns are trying to hurt themselves more. But if they make a valid argument, I'd be willing to consider it. Let's get to some of your reaction today here on the program ahead of the basketball today. And again, we may do a special show depending upon the end of the UT game and everything else. May do a special show, and I'll also be on Sirius XM tomorrow. One person says college sports are so much more enjoyable than the pros, especially. I don't really enjoy the NBA that much anymore. I'd much rather watch college basketball than the NBA, but I'm not going to be somebody that sits here and says like the NFL isn't king or that the NFL isn't better. I don't understand why we would like college football more than we would like the NFL. The NFL every week is, in my opinion, way more enjoyable, and I think it's more fair. Again, Vanderbilt, I thought belonged in the college football playoff last year. And when it comes to college football, we still sit there and decide who should be in based on, we think Notre Dame's better. And I don't like that. One person says North Carolina is one of those programs I like to see lose just because of how their fans act afterwards. I don't think North Carolina is like Tennessee or Kentucky. Tennessee and Kentucky fans, when they lose, they go crazy. I did not know that North Carolina had that reputation. And I went to a school that's in the ACC. So if anybody would know that, I think that would be me. But I'm not totally sure. By the way, I am going to have to rant about the Titans next week, as I always do. I went to a party last night. Our friends, BMG, Broken Bow Records, they had a big party for what's called the Country Radio Seminar last night, and they honored Jason Aldean for his 30 number one hits. And I must have talked to so many people last night about the new uniforms, and I think the general consensus is they look good, but it's the Oilers. And so I've got a new saying now. Oiler up. And that's going to be my new saying going forward. When people say things like tighten up, I'm just going to look back and say, Oiler up. That's it for us. Like and subscribe here on the program. Enjoy the basketball the rest of the day. We may do a special show at some point the weekend. We're presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, Stillman and Company. We will be live for sure Monday, 2 o'clock.